And they told Mordecai what Esther had said. Then Mordecai told them to reply to Esther, "Do not think to yourself that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this." Welcome back to the Dominion Podcast, episode 48. Yeah, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, I'm Jeremy Boyd. This is
my name's Ben.
Yeah, Ben Inglis.
I've been here one or two times.
Oh no, you've been here like half a dozen times.
Oh no.
Oh, plenty. Yeah, we did that. We did the one with the art and music. We did. I think we did an education one or something with you. We've done a bunch anyway.
All right.
Everybody knows.
Well,
Ben.
yeah.
Everybody knows.
I like to be welcomed.
I'm including just the audio ones as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But they've only been able to see your glorious face a handful of times.
Yeah, those poor viewers.
Alex is not with us tonight. He is off, and so we are going to have a little conversation tonight. You released an article this week on the Hill City Baptist website.
Technically, our church released it. There was no name ascribed to it.
Oh, really?
So, I mean, it could have been me.
We all know who puts great phrases together like that.
Well,
I encourage you all to go to the Hill City Baptist Church Substack and check that out. It is a Substack, correct?
It is. Yeah. We've so it is kind of sponsored. It is a church endeavor. Yeah. It's not a personal blog. Our intention is to teach and equip our own church, and for any who may be interested, specifically addressing issues of church and state, and that kind of intersection that has been sadly neglected. We're just trying to address it from a number of angles. So we're kind of finding our groove, but
doesn't it feel like with this particular topic that we've just got so much catching up to do? Like I just feel like we haven't looked at it from rarely enough angles, and every time I hear or see another article on it, I'm like, yes, I'm agreeing with it. I'm like, how have I not thought of it like that before?
Yeah, and I think this is the nature of the church in this world. We don't know the battles we're going to face. No generation knows the battles they're going to face. I mean, they can prepare themselves for the battles that have gone before, but we're not omniscient. We don't have that kind of foresight, although some do. Francis Schaeffer was speaking on these things back in the 60s and 70s about the reaching arms of the state, and many things, the encroachment of abortion, the loss of the sacredness of life, all of these things. People laughed at him. Yeah. They thought he was an alarmist. So thank God for those prophets who are largely despised in their time. We probably should have given them more heed. But God in His grace, it's not just us. We're not just, an institution. I mean, look at the disciples coming literally out of the room they'd been shaking in their boots from, the Jews, the early disciples. This is right after Pentecost, right? Yeah. They were terrified. They didn't know what was going on. And suddenly, the Spirit was upon them. God's words were in their mouth, and the church grew. And that's really our hope for every new conflict that we're going to face, is that we have the Word. The Word is always relevant. The principles are always relevant, and we have the Spirit. And we've got some catching up to do, but thank God He doesn't abandon us when we've got some catching up to do.
I've been doing some reading in church history for some Sunday school stuff we've been doing at Westmount. And one of the things I'm reading on is all these early controversies in the church with the Sabellianism and Arianism and Pelagianism. And it always seemed like before the church had really marshaled itself in each of these situations, the error had already spread through the entire thing. And it's almost like there seems to be a lag every time there's a big confrontation, right? It's like, what's that saying? The falsehood is halfway around the world before the truth even gets out of bed. Right. So Arius is out preaching his heresy, and it takes, 10 years for the church to realize what's going on, but by then it's already spread through the whole thing, and it's like a cancerous,
Yeah, and he did it in a very kind of sinister, subtle way. He actually made these little jingles, these little catchphrases for his theology.
Yeah.
And it just kind of took off, right? You get it in your head, and all of a sudden you're saying it to someone else.
Well, he knows what appeals to people, right? If you can appeal to their emotions and to their carnal sensibilities. And
So we're definitely playing catch up on a lot of these things.
Yeah. Luckily, we got guys like Joe Boot and others of that nature that have been.
Yeah. Aaron Rock.
They've been,
Jacob Reum.
Preaching this stuff for a decade now to us, and we haven't been listening. So, we don't come up with a lot of this stuff ourselves. I owe pretty much everything I believe about this to Joe Boot and those types of guys. So,
Glenn Sunshine's been great too.
Yeah, great. If you haven't read Glenn Sunshine's book, Slaying Leviathan, get a copy of that. I'm
rereading it now. It really is an indispensable read. Thank God there's one academic who could apply his awareness of history to current events.
Yeah.
It's been great. And actually the podcast, I know I probably should be advertising on this podcast for another podcast.
No, we can advertise other podcasts.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to play for the other side here, but we're all in this together.
We'll send them a bill after.
It's great. It's great.
The Theology Podcast. It's C.R. Wiley, who wrote the Household in the War for the Cosmos.
And the House of Tom Bombadil.
In the House of Tom Bombadil, which is a good book.
It is great.
By the way, we haven't talked about that
yet. I know.
Yet.
We should talk about it at some point.
We can talk about it right now, just real quickly. I mean, we do a book thing at the end anyway.
Yeah.
What did you think? Was it everything you had hoped for?
I thought it was fantastic. I agreed with his thesis regarding Tom Bombadil, that he is an agent of dominion in an otherwise chaotic place. You could just tell Wiley paid a lot of attention to language, and it was just a very carefully written book, just a short book.
Yeah.
But he touches on a lot of important things, probably even extending outward from Tom Bombadil to language and culture. And
I found myself not even thinking that much about his thesis because the book was so enjoyable to read.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Like it was, like every chapter was just, like it brought you into the mystery and the majesty of Lord of the Rings, into that whole world. It kind of brought you back in from an angle you hadn't really thought about it before. And I just found it so pleasant. Like, I don't know what other word to use.
I mean, there's nothing like reading something written by someone who loves their subject matter. The worst thing is to read kind of an academic treatise from 4 degrees of separation on a particular subject, right?
Like
kind of bird in the sky observations. Like, here's someone who's immersed himself in Middle Earth.
This is like C.S. Lewis in Abolition of Man, when he's talking about people who write about the English language that don't love it.
Yes.
It's like, if you want to write about it, like there's a way to write about it in a cold academic way, and then there's a way to write about it like somebody who adores it.
Yeah.
And understands it and knows how to bend the rules to make things beautiful.
Yep. Yeah. Same with teachers. You want to find teachers who teach like that too, who love what they're teaching, love students.
Speaking of students, we're both on the board of Kawartha Classical Christian School. So shout out to the school. We had I believe, a fairly successful plant sale last month.
The plants were flying out of there.
Man, alive.
Like a natural weather event.
Crazy colored plants too.
Yeah. I'm amazed that indoor plants are such a roaring success. Everyone wants an indoor plant. I didn't even know this was a thing.
Yeah. Your wife doesn't have plants around?
She does have lots of them, but I thought that was
my living room is a jungle.
A quirky thing that my wife did, but your wife does too.
Yeah, it makes the house beautiful.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. I don't think about it, but you just look around, you're like, oh, this room is filled with
I feel so oxygenated.
Beautiful things. Yeah. Yeah. So that was good. We had that, and at the end of May, I believe the 27th, we've got another fundraiser. Westmount Bible Chapel will be hosting a movie night featuring The Riot and the Dance 2.
Water edition.
Yeah, so you can go to kawarthaclassical.com, check that out, sign up for that.
I wonder if Alex will come to that. He hates...
I hope so. He hates what?
The deep ocean. Well, it's called, what is that, thalassophobia? It's the fear of
Facile?
Yes. He's the fear of deep oceans and places.
I find oceans terrifying.
Yeah.
Like just the pure scale and depth of it. Like everything below the surface is just an alien country, basically.
Yeah.
Totally hostile to human life.
Yeah. So looking forward to that.
Yeah. I've seen it already.
Oh, you have?
Okay. It's very good. But I'm looking forward to seeing it again. Anyway, let's get to the topic. So you wrote an article, or Hill City put out an article that you maybe spearheaded. Give me the gist. What was your argument? What were you talking about?
Yeah. So my main thrust is Christian obedience is found in the rhythm of one's calling. Whether that's as a mother or a father or a husband or a policeman or a mechanic. We don't have one. We have many callings. We have many, and you've talked about this before, many spheres of responsibility that we have duties within. And so obedience doesn't take place in a vacuum. We've talked before about kind of these exclusive planes that Christians sometimes operate on.
You're talking about obedience to the Lord.
Obedience to the Lord. That's right. Yeah. So obedience takes place perhaps to the best degree when I am at church, at home with my family, reading and writing spiritual books. That's when spirituality really flourishes. When I can, when there's no distractions, and there's definitely a place for closet prayer and private worship. That's absolutely a thing. But the idea that when we go out to our work or when we're just in the bustle of daily life, somehow obedience in that place is less important, or that's kind of a necessary evil, is just a backwards and destructive way of thinking. We as Christians need to give ourselves wholeheartedly to all of the duties that we're called to, again, as the ones I've mentioned earlier, and as citizens, as inhabitants of a region, that is one of our duties, and so it's really a call to being the best Canadian citizen that you can be, for the glory of God and for the love of neighbor.
So I think a lot of Christians, when they think about things like citizenship, they have verses in their mind like, our citizenship is in heaven, and they feel that is essentially supplants our physical citizenship, and they end up with this view that we see now. It's everywhere. It's like any type of patriotism is just bad and unchristian. Yeah, and
although
it tends to only be applied to the right-hand side of the column, as it were. It's okay to be political if you're on the left, but
and it's just, it's inescapable, and the most tragic thing the past number of years is kind of, I think, because of that way of thinking, kind of Christian withdrawal from all things politics, because this world's gonna get worse and worse, and what's the point of investing anything? And like you say, we're just passing through, we're strangers and exiles, and we are, but we have a calling here and now, and that is to be a city on a hill and salt, and the only reason that we enjoy the current freedoms that we enjoy, the kind of the level of order and stability that we enjoy, is because of biblical worldview assumptions that our Constitution assumes. I don't know if you had the red on sign here. Yeah, it's up
there.
there.
In the corner there, yeah.
Yeah, so the Canadian coat of arms, and you read it every time, right there in Latin. He shall have dominion from sea to sea.
That's right. That's Justin Trudeau, right?
Yeah, no. That's what it's referring to. Yeah. So, yeah, it was also so to be a Canadian citizen. One way I suggested that Christians, one small way, there's many ways we can be good citizens, doing a neighborhood cleanup, paying your taxes, voting,
keeping an eye out on your neighbors,
picking every last single dandelion out of your lawn.
To eat it in a salad, right? You ever had dandelion salad?
You know what?
It's delicious.
I have. Yeah. I've actually never been able to cure any lawn I've ever had of dandelions.
It's impossible.
But some of them can. Some people can. They just have that gift. Anyways, but yeah, one way is to recover the flag. And we've seen the recovery of the Canadian flag over the last 2 years, really. And I think what we're seeing in that is people realizing that Canada is more than the ideology and preferences and assumptions of an individual party or leader at an individual time. Justin Trudeau is not Canada.
Right. This is why his painting of the Freedom Convoy as wanting to overthrow the government is just completely ridiculous. Because you want a particular party or a leader to go doesn't mean you're trying to overthrow the mechanism of the government.
Yes.
Right? The government is bigger than the Liberal Party or the Conservative Party.
Or any party. Yeah. That's right. The government is a steward of the ideals of Canada. They exist to, they have a very narrow sphere, actually, although we've kind of forgotten that, to defend the nation against threats, both foreign and domestic. But they exist to uphold the tenets of the Constitution.
Right.
That they are under the Constitution, although many will say, well, they have interpretive power. Fair enough, but interpretation isn't overthrowing or completely redefining or completely ignoring, which is what we've seen.
Especially when there's 100 and whatever amount of years of precedent.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So when we hold up something like the flag, when we sing the national anthem, we're reminding each other and the powers that be that they are not autonomous, that they are accountable to a historical stream. They're accountable to the flag is kind of a microcosm. It's almost an icon for secular people. In the Christian way of thinking of things, Jesus Christ is Lord, and people have an inkling that it's not right that power should be consolidated into a human receptacle. That just everyone knows just intuitively that is a terrible idea. There has to be some larger paradigm, some larger framework that they are accountable to.
It seems like people have lost that understanding, though. I mean, there's just such a rush now to give the government as much power as possible.
There is among a certain class. I think there's a bit of disillusionment setting in, where people who might have assumed the best of government, when you're getting around to, them still talking about fourth and fifth boosters. I mean, you've got people who drank the whole Kool-Aid who are not on board with that, and they're actually asking, is the government out for our good? So
the answer to that is generally no.
Generally no.
It should be yes.
Well, the government and any power, it wants to give itself more power.
Right.
That is what power does. And so that is why power historically has been subject to checks and balances.
Right.
So we have an official opposition party.
We have courts.
We have courts. We have municipal, provincial, and federal. We've got all of these things to protect against the consolidation of power. Because, go back, we go right back to the original founding documents. It's like there was an awareness of original sin.
Yeah. You have to, if you don't have that awareness of original sin, there's no reason to put those checks and balances there.
And why you have our Prime Minister recently accusing the opposition party of obstructionism.
Yeah.
Well,
that's our job.
Welcome to democracy, Mr. Trudeau.
Yeah.
That's if democracy is running the way it should, constitutional democracy, it should be slow and inefficient.
Yes.
And you should not be just whipping things through. Yeah.
That's a feature, not a bug.
That's exactly.
We often hear people talking about it doesn't matter who gets elected, nothing ever changes, and that's kind of a blessing. It's a blessing.
Yes, I mean you can't have any kind of stable society with constant upheaval.
Yeah,
you don't have any flourishing. People are just rocked to their core and they can't do anything.
Now it makes it frustrating when, as Christians, we see injustices that we want to correct, because it takes seemingly forever to do something as simple as, hey, maybe we shouldn't kill our children.
Well,
and
this is the thing, when the government tries to get its fingers in all things that it shouldn't be touching,
right?
Education, health, all of that. That's not government sphere. Welfare, that's right. Yeah. Religion, especially. Yeah. Then you have them distracted from their main job. Like any worker on any job. Yeah. What are you doing over there doing something that says someone else's job and your own job is lying neglected?
Yeah.
Right? That's why so the government, should be punishing crime and dealing with, the interests of Canada and all of these things. But they're micromanaging all these other things, mm-hmm. which is, and you've got the bureaucratic systems multiplying, and it's just a nightmare.
You could almost call it goal-oriented government.
Yeah,
like it's kind of like the activist-oriented judiciary, where it's like, we want this outcome, so we'll just twist the law to make it do what we want. Well, the government has we want society to go in this direction, but it's actually not government's job to decide which direction society goes in.
No,
that's
they're there
citizens.
to maintain.
Yeah, yeah. Your job is to enforce the law that the society has created through its due chance.
We didn't vote for you to chart some new course into the not so brave new world.
Yeah.
So one way that, and it's almost to a point where we've let it get so bad that it's hard to really take any ground, but we've got to reverse this trend of if you are at all involved in politics in any way, then you are a theonomist. You are, you're meddling in things that you shouldn't. The separation of church and state, and what are you doing, and the Great Commission, and all of these things. And but again, as what does it mean to be a responsible Canadian citizen? It means to be on the lookout for threats to a country that I happen to believe in the tenets of.
Yeah.
And because I love my neighbor, I want them to be able to own property.
Yes.
And to buy a house,
travel freely, and to
work, to be able to defend themselves. I mean, we could all of these things, right? So,
but let me back up for a sec, because this charge of getting into politics seemingly only is launched from one side at the other, and only on certain issues. So the people that would accuse conservatives of being theonomists or meddling in politics would, in a heartbeat, throw a BLM poster on their Facebook page, or Every Child Matters
Ukrainian
poster, Ukrainian flag.
I support the current thing.
It's exactly. They're more than happy to get involved in politics, but they use the term politics as a what is it called when you have a word that's just meant to shut people up? Like
pejorative?
Yeah. Anyway, it's some word you would use. Just the goal is, the other person's going to balk at it and they're going to be quiet. Right. So when they say politics, we go, oh no, we're not trying to meddle.
Yes.
Politics.
Right. Yeah. They've already they know it's a loaded term.
But for them, it's just a word they use for issues that they don't agree with. Mm-hmm. So you're getting involved with issues that I don't agree with in the public sphere. I'm going to call it politics in order to shut you up. Right. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. Because, like you said, how does loving our neighbor not include fighting for their freedoms? And how do you fight for their freedoms without getting involved in the political sphere?
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's you've put it very succinctly there. That is the problem. And it's just so hypocritical and false for all these guys saying, "Oh, we don't want politics in the church." And I'm talking about pastors and and this has been rehashed to death. But enforcing masks, turning people away. There's a church I just drove by. Actually, I won't say the name, but there's still, you must be vaccinated to come here. It's like, you are the embodiment of politics.
Yeah.
So there's no such thing as you're going to be political no matter what, because you're a citizen of a country. You're not going to have no views on anything. The question is going to be, are they going to be scriptural, based on scriptural principles, or just, principles you've absorbed by osmosis from cultural assumptions?
And I
fed by CBC and mainstream news media, right?
Yeah. And there are good faith Christians who hear the word theonomy and they balk because they think that you're talking about stoning gay people in the village square. Right. That's just not what we're talking about. We're talking about what laws are we supposed to live by as a society?
Yes.
Do you want arbitrary man-made laws, or do you want laws from God?
Yeah, and this is the thing. It's like, what is the best for people?
Yeah.
What is the best, biblical principles are designed for human flourishing.
Yeah.
When God created man and women to be married and to be fruitful, that wasn't an arbitrary,
afterthought.
That actually is the foundation. The nuclear family is the foundation of all functional society.
Yeah.
When you have a society like ours where fathers are mocked and gone out of the family structure, you have the unraveling of the rest of society. When you just you get married and you have kids, and that's a good thing. And pick your subject. What does the Bible say about it? Yeah. If you listen to that, everyone would be better off. We're not out for creating a society of formalists and hypocrites, but everything runs better when you just listen to what God says.
It's not a path to a formal religion. It's not a path
We're not trying to create a
regeneration.
Theocracy.
No. But if you have the option, had the option to ban abortion, and you said, well, I don't want to get political.
That's right.
Because
exactly.
We're not supposed to get involved in politics, and most of the people are fine with this.
Yes.
It's like, then we never would have abolished slavery. Yeah. We never would have done anything like that if you're living according to that.
Yeah, that's right.
Is the government not God's deacon, God's servant? Isn't this Romans 13 what we've been hearing over and over?
Yeah.
How is the government supposed to serve God if it doesn't abide by His laws? And I guess I don't want to get off top too much on the thing here, but it's
Well, and Christians just need to lose that exclusivist thinking where the world can go to hell in a handbasket, and I know where I'm bound,
right?
And my family's okay, but they're probably not. And we'll just coast until we get there.
Yeah.
And it's like, that isn't loving your neighbor. I don't know what you call that, but it's you need to be involved, and you need to think through what can you do. I mean, I was mentioning there's currently 3 positions open in Peterborough for counselors of various wards,
and the mayor,
and we need a mayor too. I mean, can you imagine if there were 4 solid Christians sitting in on city council meetings, voting on things? That's a significant force for good. So, but like we're back to again. Oh, that's politics, right? That's that's out of bounds.
But we're forgetting our sphere sovereignty lessons. Like the political realm is ordained by God, right? Mm-hmm. It's not some dirty man-made thing.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. This is ordained by God.
Yeah.
So, but that doesn't mean it's just totally left to the unbeliever and the heathen.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know where we picked that up, but that's just a terrible way of understanding the civil sphere. Mm-hmm. It's like we need to be the best, most intentional Christian Canadian citizens we can be.
Yeah.
And if we have opportunity, and this is the thing, it's like people like their own little curated lives where everything is controlled and it all fits into neat categories. And when you ask them to do something slightly uncomfortable, it's almost a knee jerk, like no. And it's this same mentality where it's just like, no, I'm just gonna, I've got my little world here, and everything else can just burn, and we'll be okay. And it's just like this insular, unengaged, flaccid spirituality that is not the faith of our fathers.
Is this not the parable of the Good Samaritan that you're describing? Like
yeah.
The people that just walk by the guy who's suffering, and, go to the other side of the road. I don't want to see that.
It's like that's not my thing. But it's just like, well, you're a citizen. Are you a Canadian citizen? You're a Christian. You want to love your neighbor. Here's a way to love your neighbor. Here's a practical way to do that. And again, it's the idea of like, it's still on like a spiritual plane for people. It's like, oh, I can love my neighbor doing these, like praying for them. And you can, but like, you can mow their lawn, when they're sick, and you can do practical things, and you can sit in on city council meetings, to be that agent of opposition, that check and balance, where right now, as in the federal, so in pretty much provincial and municipal, it's pretty much a homogenous mass. There's no real opposition at all.
Yeah.
So if we have the opportunity, and we're all busy, and there's certain people who have more time than others, but if you've got that opportunity to fulfill a practical need there, then you just need to go for it. So it's just important that we think about these things. We just we assume we just have good categories of things as Christians. I'm preaching on singleness this Sunday. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get lynched, but I'm just reading through 1 Corinthians 7. We do not have biblical categories of singleness.
Yeah.
They're almost all wrong. They're almost all imbibed from societal assumptions, secular assumptions. And it's like we need to...
Along, like, in what sense? Like, how we would see singleness as it's a way for me to fulfill my dreams?
Even this idea that, and I know we're off topic here, but like, you just linger on into your 20s and 30s without even thinking about marriage.
Right.
It's like, that's totally bizarre and an anomaly, a historical anomaly, and not healthy. So, but all that to say, we need to be we can't just sit back and assume we're going to make the right decisions. We need to dig into the scriptures and figure out what our responsibilities are here, and take a good hard look at our lives, and not just assume we'll float toward holiness and obedience, because we don't.
You referenced a quote from Bonhoeffer in the article that was really good.
Did I?
About pulling the steering wheel.
Yes,
if you're riding in the.
I actually have it here, so I'm going to read it up. Pulling the steering wheel from the Madman. So this is Bonhoeffer. If I sit next to a madman as he drives a car into a group of innocent bystanders, I can't, as a Christian, simply wait for the catastrophe, then comfort the wounded and bury the dead. I must try to wrestle the steering wheel out of the hands of the driver. So that's a great quote. You've got the pietists there, who are sitting at the edge of the scene, going, "Oh, this is going to end badly."
Yeah, I'll be here to help everybody afterwards.
Yeah. It's like, well, maybe he drives by you and with his window open, and you've got a chance to jump in and turn the steering wheel.
Yeah.
There's risk there, absolutely, for you and for other people, but you can't. Is that love to just watch, like he says, watch the catastrophe play out when you had an opportunity, and Bonhoeffer himself was faced with this very crossroads in his own life.
Yep.
Where when he had the opportunity to be of this part of this plot to assassinate Hitler, that was a moment of crisis for him. Do I participate in this? Is this outside of my sphere somehow? But that's exactly where that quote came out of, right? Yeah. It's like, I have the opportunity to steer things away from a worse catastrophe than they already are. I just think we need to start thinking like Bonhoeffer and William Wilberforce.
Yeah. And re-examine our categories of what loving neighbor means.
That's right.
I forget who I was talking to recently, but we were talking about the law and how it is often, as Christians, we perceive the law as just a series of negative commands. Don't. But I've been listening to a lot of Rushdoony lately, talking about the law, and he talks about all the positive aspects to the law. So you shall not murder doesn't just mean don't kill somebody in anger, but there are positive aspects to that you must fulfill. So nurturing life, if you see something that is contrary to that command, you have to actively pursue against it. And so it's not just a negative command. And so loving our neighbor doesn't just mean not hurting them or not putting them in danger, but it means actively working for their good.
Yeah. Yeah. We just need to recover that. We need to recover a full, active, immersive life where, yes, we are Christians, and obviously people more than anything, and especially in this age of despair and failed saviors, and people are just floundering. I mean, it's really sad to talk to people, and they have no hope. And we need to be, but it's not exclusive. It's not like you can do politics or you can be a minister of the gospel. It's like, why not do both? Why not do politics and minister the gospel? Why not be a minister of reconciliation?
Yeah.
In a council meeting, what might that look like? What about if your prayers were happening within one of those meetings, right? What might that change? So yeah, these exclusive categories, and we just need to get rid of and just dive in. And there is risk, and we're going to get things wrong. And I think Alex was actually saying the reason his brother is so mechanically astute, like he's just a brilliant mechanic, is that he at one point took the risk of taking his entire vehicle apart, to put it back together.
Story,
it's a great analogy. It's like, yeah, there's a risk. It might not run again. And when we embark in this territory that we haven't had to think about for most of our lives, right? If we're younger, the intersection of church and state, we're going to make some mistakes, but we can't not do anything for fear of making some errors. And if we are laboring in prayer and an honest study of the Word, where we are in a posture where we want our thinking to be shaped by the Bible, I think John Newton said, like, God's not going to let you go too wrong when you're coming to the Word with that posture, with that humility of spirit, right?
Yeah, if you're truly humble. Yeah.
But it's but that's the posture we need to come, because there is a lot of ways it can go wrong. And even writing these articles, it's like there is that trepidation. You don't want Christians to stumble, there is that assumption that I may need to repent and retract something, but I can't not do anything, right? Yeah. And I'm sure Luther. I'm not comparing myself to Luther, but it's kind of like there's one guy against a monolithic empire, and suddenly he doesn't see the things they do. I mean, if we think we're afraid, how must he have been feeling, right? And he wrestled for long nights.
Yeah, it's like Athanasius, the same thing.
Yes,
basically going against the entire church structure, saying, "No, you guys are wrong."
But our conscience needs to be bound by the Word of God.
Yeah,
our creeds, our confessions, useful, helpful, I think necessary, but not. At the end of the day, we are bound to the Word of God, and we need to be reforming where it requires us to reform, and articulating where we need to re-articulate, maybe.
Well, that's great. So I really appreciated that article. Get you all to go to the Hill City Baptist Substack and check that out.
Yeah.
What are you reading recently?
I just finished a great book called Shopcraft, Shop Class as Soulcraft. And basically, really fascinating. This guy went into philosophy, majored in philosophy, joined some big think tank, kind of at the top of, it's kind of like the holy grail of the progressive university graduate, right? Everything that you would want. And he was there for about 6 months. And he's just like, this is the stupidest thing I have ever seen. Like, what are we doing here? It's like we're just, what do they call them? Culture shapers or influencers.
Right, yeah.
Social media influencer. It's just like, we're not actually producing any goods. Like, we're not actually doing anything. And so he quit. And he opened a motorcycle repair shop where he fixes old motorcycles. And the book is good. You can tell he took a philosophy major. Like, there's a lot of unnecessarily big words, to be frank. But he makes some brilliant observations about the just the devastation that a heavily bureaucratic society brings on a people, the travesty of the disconnect between working with your hands and working with your mind. And we've created these factory line jobs where the joy of a craft has been totally erased, and where workers don't able to see the finished product. They're involved in all these fragmented applications, but and just when I think back to books that have changed something in the way I think, like, this is going to be one of them. He's not a Christian remotely, but like, for example, like I'm totally hopeless at most mechanical things, and I've kind of been hiding behind the excuse of like, well, that's not my thing. But it's just like, it's actually an abdication of responsibility. And here's another area you can take dominion in, right? So
it is. And as somebody who is now mechanically able, I would say that most people, and when I say most, I mean most, there are very few people that cannot learn to use their hands.
Yeah.
So people who say I'm not mechanically inclined, they just haven't tried enough and haven't failed enough. Yeah. But if you do something, you'll learn how to do it.
That's right.
You just have to like Alex's brother.
We're back to the risk again, right?
You just got to take the thing apart and learn how to put it back together as you go.
Yeah. And another benefit of reading that book, well, I don't know if it's a benefit or not. I used to hate motorcycles. Like the sound of them. Yeah. They just strike me as an incredibly invasive, obnoxious machine. And I know some of them are intentionally. He doesn't need to be that loud. Come on. Yeah. But anyways, I feel like my antipathy towards motorcycles is gone after reading this book. And a few drove by today. I was appreciating them as a layperson. Yeah. So
nice.
Yeah. How about you? What are you reading?
Oh, everybody knows what I'm reading. I've been stuck on the same 3 books for a while now. I've got Kingdom Through Covenant on the go.
Okay. Yeah. Good. You'll have that one on the go for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I am. I am getting close to the end, but I skipped the major portion in the middle. I kind of
large Hebrew discussion.
The section on each covenant, describing each covenant. Yeah. So I read his prolegomena, and then now I'm in the conclusion and the summary section. Okay. And then I'm going to go back eventually and work through the rest. But yeah, so there's that. And I've been reading a bunch of Woodhouse lately, which is just,
good for you.
It's such a joy.
Isn't it?
There's
someone who delights in language.
Yes. And it's funny, I listen to all these heavy podcasts and all this. And then every now and then you just throw the P.G. Woodhouse on, read by Stephen Fry. And it's
the best.
He does such a good job.
Isn't it? Yeah.
I just find myself laughing out loud.
It's incredibly witty.
Yeah. I'd recommend any of his books. Yeah. What else was I going to say? There was something I had.
You said you had 3 books on the go, but it was just 2. But you're a podcast guy.
Yeah, I've got a church history book on the go, which is really good. 2,000 Years of Christ's Power.
Is that Nick Needham?
Yeah.
Yep.
Very
great.
So working through that, it's so enjoyable to read. He's got such
Have you listened to Nick Needham?
No.
Oh, man. You got to listen to Scottish.
Is it heavy?
And the archetypal Scottish. Yeah. Rolling the R's. Just a real Scot. You could just see him taking out a broadsword and cutting down his audience. Yeah, he's fantastic.
He's going after the Queen. Yeah. Queen Elizabeth, yeah. Oh, here's what I was going to mention. Ben and I are really into this sacred harp singing lately. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that. Just go on YouTube and type in sacred harp and watch some of these videos of people singing. We're so enamored by it, we want to start a singing group. So
we're going to plunge in
next Saturday. So that'll be the
7th.
7th of May. We're going to meet together. Have we talked about the location with the people yet?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay, it'll probably be at Westmount.
Yeah.
I haven't confirmed that
right.
Yet, but, at Westmount Bible Chapel. So basically, it's a singing that is not performative. It is what would you call it?
Yeah, it's an immersive choral experience. You're singing at each other.
The goal is not to
perform
for other people, but to be edified by one another and to learn how to sing in 4-part harmony using this system that these books have called the
And you don't have to be musical.
You don't, and it actually helps if you're not.
Yes,
because as both of us have studied music to some degree, trying to learn this musical system, we've had to unlearn other things in order to learn it. So, but that's going to be great. So that'll be the 7th, probably 10:30 in the morning, I believe.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, so that'll be great. We got some of the hymn books for sale. If you want to join, you can buy one of those off of us. But we'll leave it at that for now. But any final words? Any pastoral encouragement for the folks?
Yeah. Well, I'm just so encouraged by people sticking it out. This has not been an easy season. And many, many points at which offense, resent, could have interceded, intercepted, but just the sincere love that covers a multitude of sins, giving the benefit of the doubt, and we just, again, saying that again, our posture needs to be where the word goes, we go.
Yeah.
And even if it grinds against everything that we feel like we want to do, it is the path of life. And even in Pilgrim's Progress, right?
Yeah.
And it's that narrow path, and it's like, this path over here seems a lot easier. Why don't we go over there? It's a path that leads to life, despite what we think.
That's tough, man. It's really tough because we all have our own comforts, our own, like you said, I've got my thing sorted out. This is what my life is. This is what I do.
Yep. Yeah. And no sacrifice will ever be wasted in Christ. Isn't that an amazing thing? It's
a great quote.
No loss.
Paul Washer. I forget what it was in the context of a sermon, and he says, I've never regretted anything I've given up for Christ, but I've regretted everything that I've kept to myself.
Yeah. What a great quote.
Yeah. So, yeah,
that's the supernatural
true.
work. That's the Spirit's work, because that's not of the flesh right there, that kind of thinking. So it's we need to pray for that.
Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Dominion Podcast. Next time will be episode 49. We'll leave you with this. May he have dominion from sea to sea and from the river to the ends of the earth. May all kings fall down before him, all nations serve him.